Picture this. You're sitting at a dinner table. The air is filled with laughter, jokes, lighthearted chatter about the weather, about work, about someone's vacation. It's safe, predictable, comfortable. But then, someone at the table says something that cuts deeper. A thought that isn't meant to entertain, but to reveal. A truth about life, about suffering, about the emptiness beneath the small talk. And suddenly, the room changes. Glasses stop clinking. Smiles tighten. The laughter dies down. Why does this happen? Why does a single moment of honesty feel so threatening? And more importantly, why is it so often the most intelligent people, the thinkers, the observers? The ones who can help but notice the cracks beneath the surface. Who are the ones to speak these truths and then slowly to retreat from society altogether? It's a question as old as philosophy itself. Is solitude really just loneliness? Or is it something far more powerful, liberation? This isn't a casual question. For centuries, those who saw the world with clarity, philosophers, poets, scientists, artists, have all told the same story. The smarter you become, the more society begins to feel like a burden. And perhaps no one captured this more brutally than Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer wasn't interested in comforting lies. He didn't believe in sugarcoating human nature. Where others saw joy and connection, he saw masks and illusions. Where others praised social life as a blessing, he revealed it as a trap, a noisy distraction that slowly suffocates the mind of anyone capable of deep thought. This is the uneasy truth. The path of intelligence often leads not toward the crowd, but away from it. Away from noise, towards silence. Away from distraction, towards solitude. And in the next few minutes, we're going to uncover why. Not just why smart people abandon social life, but why their retreat may be the most honest, the most necessary decision a human being can make. Stay with me, because once you hear Schopenhauer's insight, you may never see solitude the same way again. Arthur Schopenhauer's first brutal observation was simple, yet devastating. What we call social life, he argued, is not nourishment, but noise. Think about it. The average person spends their days caught in an endless stream of gossip, comparison, and chatter. They speak because silence feels unbearable. They seek company not for truth, but for distraction. And the result? A kind of background noise that fills the mind without ever feeding it. To Schopenhauer, this wasn't just a minor annoyance. It was poison. He believed that the constant pressure to socialize, to always be available, to always be talking, to always be seen, was a dilution of the self, a quiet erosion of one's inner life. Imagine for a moment you are an artist attempting to paint a masterpiece. Your vision is vivid, fragile, alive. But every 5 minutes, someone barges in, asking a question, sharing gossip, pulling you into their drama. How much of your vision would survive? How much clarity would remain once your attention was scattered into 1,000 fragments? For Schopenhauer, society does exactly this to the thinker. The crowd pulls at your focus. It interrupts the solitude needed for creation, reflection, and clarity. It demands that you abandon depth in exchange for endless surfaces. And so, those who begin to think deeply, who start noticing the futility of so much chatter, naturally feel drained. Not because they hate people, but because they sense the cost of being constantly surrounded by them. He wasn't guessing. He was observing. Look at history. Newton retreating into obsessive solitude to wrestle with the laws of motion. Kafka filling diaries with private reflections, unable to bear the superficiality of crowds. Emily Dickinson, who rarely left her room, but filled it with poetry that continues to echo through centuries. These figures weren't running from life. They were protecting it, guarding their inner world from the constant erosion of noise. This is the paradox Schopenhauer pointed out. What the world praises as connection, the thinker experiences as suffocation. What the world calls loneliness, the thinker calls freedom. And in this freedom, this solitude, the mind is allowed to breathe. History tells us something that modern society tries to ignore. The greatest leaps in human thought have almost always been born in solitude. Take Isaac Newton. At the height of the plague, when universities closed and cities descended into chaos, Newton retreated to the countryside. Alone in silence, he developed the foundations of calculus and began formulating the laws of motion. His solitude gave him the clarity to see what no one else could. Or consider Franz Kafka. To most of his acquaintances, he seemed reserved, melancholic, even fragile. But in the silence of his isolation, he wrote stories so piercing that they continue to haunt and illuminate readers a century later. His solitude was not weakness. It was the soil in which his genius took root. Friedrich Nietzsche too understood this deeply. He fled to the Swiss Alps, where long walks in silence gave birth to his most powerful ideas, ideas that continue to shape philosophy today. He once said, "I go into solitude so as not to drink out of everybody's cistern. When I am among the many, I live as the many do, and I do not think as I really think." And then there is Emily Dickinson. She rarely left her home, and many thought her reclusive life was strange, even sad. Yet from her quiet room came nearly 2,000 poems, works of startling beauty and honesty, revealing truths that conversation could never touch. What ties all of these figures together? It is not misanthropy. It is not arrogance. It is necessity. They understood that the inner world must be protected if it is to flourish. That deep thought, like a delicate flame, can be extinguished by the gusts of constant social obligation. Schopenhauer saw this pattern clearly. The thinker, the artist, the seeker of truth. These individuals are not running from people. They are running toward clarity. Their withdrawal is not an escape, but a return to themselves, to their vision, to the silence where real creation begins. And here lies the lesson for us. Solitude has always been the ground where genius grows. Not in the crowd, not in the noise, but in the stillness that most people are too afraid to face. In social life, something subtle yet exhausting happens. We put on masks. Most of the time, we don't even notice it. We adjust our tone to match the group. We soften or sharpen our words depending on who is listening. We laugh at things we don't find funny. We hold back thoughts that feel too heavy for the room. This constant shape-shifting is rarely conscious, but it's always happening. We become fragments of ourselves, pieces tailored to fit the expectations of others. And the more intelligent a person is, the more deeply they feel the weight of this fragmentation. Because for a thinker, authenticity is oxygen. To compromise it, to pretend, to dilute, to play along, feels like suffocation. Schopenhauer understood this tension. He believed that society thrives on performance, that most people aren't really looking for truth, but for validation. And when truth enters the room, when someone dares to go deeper, it disrupts the fragile performance everyone is working so hard to maintain. That's why silence follows honesty. That's why thinkers retreat, not because they hate others, but because they cannot survive behind a mask. Schopenhauer once remarked, "The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him." To the shallow mind, life feels straightforward. Entertainment is enough. Small talk is sufficient. But to the deep mind, life is layered with contradictions, beauty and suffering intertwined, meaning and absurdity coexisting. And these are not topics for casual chatter. Try bringing them up at a party, and you'll see how quickly eyes drift, how laughter grows nervous, how the mood collapses. For the intelligent person, this mismatch is exhausting. You want to share what feels real, but the world often demands that you keep things light, keep things easy, keep things shallow. And so you withdraw, not into emptiness, but into honesty. Because in solitude, no mask is needed. You can simply be. You can breathe as your whole self again. For the thinker, solitude is not a loss. It is a return. To understand why intelligent people retreat from society, Schopenhauer asks us to look beneath the surface of human interaction. What do we find there? Not harmony, not truth, but ego. At its core, he believed, human life is driven by a blind, ceaseless force he called the will to live. This primal will pushes us to survive, to compete, to dominate, to reproduce. And while it may be hidden beneath manners and politeness, it is always there, shaping our behaviors, our conversations, our relationships. What we call social life, then, is often just another battlefield, a stage where egos fight for recognition, where status is displayed like armor, where alliances are built, not out of love for truth, but out of convenience, validation, or survival. For the average person, this is normal. Socializing is strategy. It's how they find mates, climb ladders, signal worth. But for the thinker, the one who questions the very nature of existence, this endless game quickly feels hollow. Imagine standing in a crowded room where everyone is speaking a language you barely understand. The words are empty, the gestures rehearsed, The conversation's predictable. You nod politely, but inside, you feel like a spectator watching a play. That is how the intelligent individual often experiences common social settings. It is not arrogance. It is incompatibility. A deep mind cannot thrive in shallow waters. The more one sees through the illusions of ego, the more exhausting it becomes to participate in them. Schopenhauer put it sharply: the more a man has in himself, the less he will want from other people. When your inner world is rich, filled with ideas, questions, creativity, then the ego games of the crowd lose their appeal. You no longer need company to feel alive. You need solitude to protect your mind. This is why thinkers disengage. Not as rebellion, not as bitterness, but as preservation. Because in a world where social life is so often an ego contest, the deepest souls choose to step aside. When someone begins to withdraw from society, the world rarely understands. Friends ask, "Why don't you come out more?" Family wonders, "Are you okay?" Colleagues whisper about arrogance, coldness, even depression. Society is quick to attach labels: antisocial, distant, broken. But the truth Schopenhauer pointed to is different. For many intelligent souls, solitude is not weakness, it is nourishment. It is the place where they finally feel whole. Consider Schopenhauer himself. He lived much of his life in solitude, spending hours walking, reading, and writing. Many found him pessimistic, even unfriendly. But for him, solitude was sanity. Company drained him, while silence restored him. This is the paradox of the misunderstood outsider. What the world sees as withdrawal is, in reality, preservation. A quiet act of protection against the draining noise of superficiality. Think about it. When was the last time you left a gathering feeling more alive, more whole, more connected to your deepest self? And when was the last time you felt that same way after a walk alone, or an hour immersed in thought, or a night spent with a book? For many, the answer is unsettling. Because while society insists that happiness is found in groups, the intelligent often find it in solitude. Schopenhauer knew this path was difficult. To step away from the crowd is to invite misunderstanding. It is to accept being seen as strange, distant, even broken. But he also knew that those who have the courage to walk this path are not escaping life. They are embracing it on their own terms. And so, the outsider remains misunderstood. To the world, they seem detached. But within, they are more alive, more centered, more aligned than ever before. Schopenhauer did not see solitude as passive withdrawal. To him, it was active liberation. One of the greatest illusions of social life, he argued, is the belief that others can complete us, that happiness comes from their approval, their praise, their constant company. He called this the folly of dependence, and he believed it trapped most people in cycles of disappointment, insecurity, and self-betrayal. The wise, in contrast, begin to turn inward. They stop looking outside for what can only be cultivated within. Think of the young, intelligent child. Even at school, they may feel misplaced. While others chase games of popularity, they linger on questions, observations, curiosities. They are sensitive to things their peers overlook, and often, they feel the weight of being different. As they grow older, the difference becomes sharper. Small talk feels empty. Peer groups feel shallow. The pressure to conform feels suffocating. Many try to suppress their depth to fit in, but eventually, some stop pretending. They no longer force themselves into spaces that drain them. They decline the invitations, the obligations, the noise. And in that turning away, a transformation begins. This retreat into solitude is not despair. It is discovery. With no one left to perform for, the thinker finally encounters the raw self, the unfiltered mind, the hidden fears, the authentic dreams, the untapped gifts. Yes, this confrontation can be terrifying. To sit alone without distraction is to face truths most people spend their lives avoiding. But for the intelligent soul, it is the first step toward mastery. Nietzsche understood this too. He wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." Solitude, for him, was not punishment. It was responsibility, the price of seeing more clearly than the crowd. And so, Schopenhauer and Nietzsche both remind us, solitude is not emptiness. It is the soil where selfhood grows. It is not the absence of life. It is life at its most real. Solitude is not without its price. Schopenhauer knew this better than anyone. The more intelligent you become, the lonelier the path can feel. As your awareness deepens, the number of people you can truly connect with seems to shrink. Conversations that once felt enough now feel hollow. Gatherings that once felt exciting now feel exhausting. It is a painful paradox. Less connection, but more meaning. Fewer people, but deeper peace. And yet, within this loneliness lies the greatest reward. In solitude, you no longer measure yourself by others' expectations. You no longer chase approval or bend to belong. Instead, you begin to align with your true nature. You return to yourself. Schopenhauer believed this turning inward was not a tragedy, it was liberation. Solitude becomes the open space where the soul breathes, the mind sharpens, the spirit expands. It is where clarity takes root. Yes, the path is lonely, but it is a sacred loneliness. The loneliness of the climber scaling heights others fear, of the poet who sees what others overlook, of the thinker who refuses to be lulled to sleep by noise. This is the paradox of solitude. It strips away the comfort of company, but it offers the priceless gift of authenticity. Schopenhauer left us with one final, piercing insight. Solitude is not just escape, it is rebellion. In a world addicted to distraction, where worth is measured by likes, applause, and belonging, choosing silence is a radical act. To step away from the noise, to refuse the games of ego and validation, is to resist the forces that keep most people trapped. For Schopenhauer, the thinker who embraces solitude is not retreating from life, but elevating it. By refusing to be consumed by the crowd, they gain freedom. By stepping out of the performance, they step into clarity. And in this clarity, something shifts. You stop needing from the world and begin giving to it. Your presence becomes more powerful because it no longer comes from hunger, but from fullness. This is the paradox. The one who withdraws most deeply, when they finally return, speaks with a voice that cannot be ignored. Their solitude has not made them weaker. It has made them unshakable. To embrace solitude, then, is more than self-care. It is an act of defiance. It is to say, I will not drown in your noise. I will not chase what is shallow. I will seek what is real, even if I must seek it alone. So what does all of this mean for you? It means that solitude is not your weakness. It is your strength. It is not a burden, but a gift. The silence that others fear may be the very soil where your deepest self takes root. Yes, the path is lonely, but it is the sacred loneliness of the seeker, the poet, the philosopher. The loneliness of those who refuse to trade truth for comfort or authenticity for approval. And when the world asks why you don't show up more, why you walk away from the noise, smile gently, and answer with the calm certainty of one who knows. Because I have already found what you still searching for. If this message resonates with you, you are not alone. You are part of a hidden lineage, a brotherhood and sisterhood of thinkers who have chosen silence over noise, truth over performance. So embrace your solitude. Let it sharpen you. Let it free you. And when you return to the world, return not as someone seeking from it, but as someone overflowing with it. If this journey spoke to you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone walking the same path, and subscribe to join a community where depth is not the exception, but the standard. Because in solitude, everything begins.